Welcome to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. This podcast features powerful hypnosis, so do not listen while driving or operating machinery. This recording is not suitable for those with epilepsy or severe mental health issues. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here, and in this episode of The Hypnotist, you're going to be listening to a hypnosis session for a gentleman that had successfully been losing weight and had a turbulent time in his personal life that led him to revert back to some old behaviors. And this gentleman had a very, very effective weight loss strategy. He had got to a point where his body had adapted to eating 2 meals a day, the first meal at lunchtime and then the second meal in the evening meal. But crucially, what he was eating in those 2 meals generally was protein, like meats, and vegetables, so high in fiber. And what that does, the protein satiates the appetite, and the fibrous vegetables give a feeling of fullness and slows the digestion. Also, fibrous vegetables tend to have slow release energy. But because there is a lack of refined carbohydrates in these meals, it tends to be slow release energy and keeps the insulin levels down. And he'd had a prolonged period of time of having these 2 meals a day. He'd lost a significant amount of weight. But as what happens in life is certain things can trigger different emotional states. And one of the emotional states that can lead people to seek refuge in food is uncertainty. When things are no longer as they were, it can create a feeling of anxiety or concern or just instability. And for many people, there has been a strategy in the past where food has been used to cope with these uncertain times, because think of eating disorders. A lot of teenagers that do develop eating disorders tend to have a chaotic time in their life, and the food becomes a source of certainty. They may not be able to control their outside world, but they can control what they eat. And then obviously there's other things at play there as well. But in this particular hypnosis session, we're going to treat this kind of 2 or 3 weeks of him almost relinquishing his effective strategy and going back to old behaviors to say, well, actually, did that make sense? Now that he knew that it wasn't making him feel better, it wasn't giving him more energy, it was making him more sluggish, that actually those 2 weeks could be an excellent tool if you treat it like a step in the wrong direction. So you're going to hear in this hypnosis session an element of timeline therapy that future paces 2 different realities. Now, the nature of the future is that there is infinite possible futures. You can make any decision in any one day that can change the trajectory of your life. But for simplicity, it's good to look at 2 different futures, because that can create clarity of a choice. And one of these futures is what he'd been doing for the few weeks, just imagining that happens for the next 10 or 20 years. And where would that take his health, his lifestyle, his confidence, and various other parts of his life. And then there was an element of experimenting with a different future where he goes back to eating those 2 nutritious meals per day, allowing his body to adapt to that, and then seeing the progress until he got to the kind of level of weight that he was happy with. And in the actual session itself, it got quite emotional, because this gentleman had family members that didn't make great choices when it came to food and health, and had actually, in some cases, had premature deaths as a result of that. So it was more impactful for this gentleman than perhaps I would have expected, because of his personal experience with the consequences of that. He could almost see a future version of himself falling into the patterns of people that he knew very well. I think this session will be useful for anyone that has had an effective strategy and then no longer following that effective strategy, in which case you should be able to benefit from this particular hypnosis session. But of course, this was created for the particular individual that I'm working with. So if you want something more bespoke and built to your individual needs, there will be a link in the show notes that you can schedule a free 30-minute consultation call to explore working with me, completely free of charge and with no obligation, but just to explore what it would be like to work with me directly, rather than just listening to the recordings that were created for someone else. But for this particular session that could quite possibly be useful for you, find a quiet place where you won't be disturbed, relax, and enjoy the session. Take a deep breath in, and as you breathe in a resourceful feeling of relaxation, and as you exhale, just allow any feelings of worry, tension to leave your body in your outward breath. On the next inward breath in, feel resourceful feelings coming in, and as you exhale, just close your eyes, and as your eyes closed, just allow a feeling of relaxation to pass through your body, meaning that simply by breathing in and breathing out, you're able to feel deeper and deeper relaxed. That's it. I want you to notice any feelings of tension or stress in your body. And let's look in the usual suspects. Continue to breathe in and breathe out, because sometimes tension is around the eyes, the eyelids, the eyebrows, around the eyes. And if that's the case, and even if it isn't, on the next inward breath in, feel a resourceful feeling of relaxation going in, and just choose to release any and all tension around the eyes, and feel that tension leave your body in your outward breath. That's right. And perhaps you can focus your attention in the muscles in your forehead. Sometimes those muscles in the forehead are essential. It's impossible to project the emotion of concern or surprise without tensing certain muscles completely unconsciously. But as you breathe in and breathe out, I wonder what would happen if you allow those muscles to totally relax, to release the tension there in your forehead. That's it. Releasing that tension. And now pay attention to the muscles in your jaw. I want you to imagine your jaw as machinery that uses mechanics. And I want you to imagine a rusted, old machine. And just imagine it whirring around. The noise it makes, the screeches, very inefficient. And I want you to imagine your jaw is transforming from a representation of old mechanical machinery to brand new machinery. Well-oiled, working smoothly, efficiently, silently, as you release all the tension there in your jaw. That's it. And now focus your attention in your neck and your shoulders. Some people consider this the bank account of stress. And there's certain bank accounts that don't need any money in, and this is one of them. And I want you to imagine your neck and your shoulders. For any tension and stress that's locked in that muscle tissue, just consider it melting away. Remember a recent time on a beach with hot sun, and just feel like it's melting away any tension, any stress there in the neck, the shoulders. That's it. Feel that relaxation spreading all the way down your arms, into your fingers. That's it. As you notice that when you breathe deeper and slower, you're breathing in more of that resourceful feeling of relaxation, and you're exhaling more of that stress and tension. And I want you to reflect on the last few days and weeks, and hold on to any thoughts that were the cause of any stress and tension. And as you breathe out, just feel like you're letting go of any tension, any stress, any baggage emotions that were connected to recent events. Just feel like they can wash off like water off a duck's back. They can melt away, they can be released. Because when you hold on to certain things, it has a physiological impact in your body. Sometimes when you let go of thoughts and worries and any causes of stress or conflict, your body finds an inner tranquility, an inner peace. And as it does that, you can truly, deeply slow things down, slowing your breathing, which in turn slows your heart rate to that natural resting rate. Your body has a sympathetic nervous system to fight, but it also has a parasympathetic nervous system, which is an optimum place to be, to heal, to relax, and to reset. And I wonder what would happen if we considered this point right now an opportunity to reevaluate and reset things. One of the best questions you can ever ask yourself is, knowing what I now know, what is the right thing to do? Knowing what I now know, what's the ideal change to make? And the best way to test a change is not to test it in the moment, it's to go back in time and to see if that change would still work when things were more stressful. Because if things work when the pressure and the stress is high, they're tested. They're tested so that when things aren't so pressured or stressful, they work just fine. Consider this training at altitude or pressure testing a new submarine. And I want you to think that you have the ability to go back in time. And I want you to take yourself back maybe 3 or 4 weeks, but with all the knowledge, all of the insight, all of the resources that you now have access to. And I want you to imagine reliving the key moments that led you to make choices that, with the benefit of hindsight, weren't optimal choices. Go back in time and relive those moments, the same triggers, but the same triggers triggering a different choice. An empowering choice. A choice that sends you towards a destination that is desirable to you. And perhaps there was 3 or 4 or even more key moments that triggered a thought, a feeling, an emotion, or a choice. And I want you to relive each of those key moments, but this time from a place of positivity, confidence, perspective. Imagine the same things happening, but this time you're handling them differently, in a more resourceful way, in a way that serves you rather than hinders you, in a way that empowers you rather than sends you back. And each time you go through one of those key moments, those key memories, in a way that helps you rather than hinders you, just let me know by nodding your head. That's it, then jump to the next one. That's it, each moment, each memory It's a new version of you dealing with the same moment in a way that empowers you, serves you, benefits you. And when you've gone through all moments in a way that's helpful rather than hinders, just let me know by nodding your head. That's it. And I want you to take from that a feeling of empowerment, that when you know better, you do better, that forewarned is forearmed. And actually, even if recent events weren't desirable, you can at least say they were beneficial. Because when things happen like this again, you will see them for the trap and the slippery slope that they are, and you will be able to navigate around those traps with effortless ease. And I want you to imagine now that if you can go back in time, you can always look forwards in time. And I want you to imagine that in many people's lives it follows a series of key decisions. Each decision is a fork in the road, and you spin off on a flowchart, sending you off in a different tree with a different branch in an entirely different direction. And I want you to imagine this fork in the road enables you to go in two entirely different directions to two entirely different destinations. And the first destination we should visit is the undesirable destination. I want you to think back to what's happened recently and think, what would happen if you didn't backtrack your steps and take a more preferable road? I want you to imagine you're already a few weeks down this road to this new destination. But because of what you've done, you've now got back to the fork in the road. And you can choose to go down the same track again. But doesn't it make sense to explore that track, that road, to see where it ends up? And I want you to imagine where that road would take you 10 years in the future, going back to old eating habits, snacking, eating refined carbohydrates and certain foods that spike your insulin. But let's not go back a few months, because nothing changes in a few months. Maybe you just gain the weight that you'd already lost. I want you to go back and think what would happen if you went forwards 10 years down this road. Eating whenever you feel like it, eating as a source of solace, to gain control, to gain gratification. And I want you to observe yourself like you're someone else 10 years from now down that track. See how much weight you've gained. But more importantly, see the impact it's had on your health, the energy levels. See you 10 years from now. What's your body shape? What's your fitness levels? What's it done to your aging? And what's it done to your overall health? And if you can see yourself 10 years from now with certain habits that you'd like to no longer have, just let me know by nodding your head. That's it. And I want you to step into that future version of you to get a taste of how it would feel to end up in a destination that is not desirable for you. Imagine walking around with that body weight, feeling your energy levels, feeling the constant craving for food. What's it done to your relationships? What's it done to your social life? I want you to imagine an appointment with a doctor where they have news that is proportionate to living this lifestyle. And then go another 5 or 10 years in the future, continuing down this path. And if this feels like an undesirable place, like a destination you want to avoid rather than gravitate towards, just let me know by nodding your head. That's it. Really feel that commitment to not going to this place increase feel a huge desire to make sure that this place exists only in your imagination and never in reality. And then just imagine that in your own body you can rewind everything. Feel like a VHS recorder and rewind, except you're in the first person and you're feeling like you're rewinding in your own body. Rewind 15 or 20 years back to the point, just like Scrooge in A Christmas Carol, experienced a future that he didn't want, and then woke up in the present with a desire to do things differently. I want you to imagine you're now in the present, and that there are choices that you made in the past that were beneficial for you, that helped you to make progress, that made it natural for you to be more positive, enthusiastic, live with a spring in your step, that the journey was just as desirable as the destination. And if you feel like you know what that path is, let me know by nodding your head. And I want you to imagine walking down that path and imagining what you would do literally today or tomorrow, what immediate choices you could make that's the equivalent of taking just a few steps towards this destination. What would you do when you wake up tomorrow? What would you do the day after? How could you get back on track? How could this be your new normal? And imagine doing that for a few weeks and noticing that whatever the consequences were of that setback, you've more than made up for those. You're making progress again. And I want you to imagine what it would be like a year from now of continuing to eat this way, this size of portion, this quantity of meals. Just a year from now. And I want you to look back on your life and realize how quickly a year can go. The time will pass anyway, but if the time passes with consistent, healthy decisions, you could imagine waking up a year from now in a body that's physically different, with more energy, more confidence, more vitality. And I want you to think of all the different ways in which that would be beneficial for you. And then imagine another year. Think back to where you were 2 years from now and how quickly that time has passed. Another 2 years will pass quickly. But 2 years of healthy, consistent choices, not perfect, just consistently healthy, useful choices, will send your life in a trajectory hugely beneficial. On this game of snakes and ladders, you now know where all the snakes are. So whenever you roll that dice, you can move forward and make progress, knowing that even if you do take a temporary setback, that's an opportunity for you to avoid that setback in the future. Imagine where you'll be 5 years from now. 5 years of not perfect choices, but consistently healthy choices. Imagine seeing yourself, perhaps in a mirror, or imagine seeing yourself on a beach or a holiday destination and your body has dramatically changed. You walk differently, more confidently. There's lots of positive enthusiasm, positive energy. And I want you to see how your partner looks at you in that body. Certain emotions, maybe desire, pride. I want you to notice that by you being your best and moving towards this future, you start inspiring other people around you. Momentum is creating in your life that mean that other things completely unrelated to health and weight also improve. That's just the way it works. So as you see yourself 5 years from now, see that other things have also improved. And then imagine another 5 years, 10 years in the future from now. You might notice that you look older, but physically, it almost looks like you haven't aged at all. Because you have your actual age and then you have your biological age. There are people in their 20s and 30s with a biological age in their 40s, and people in their 50s and 60s with a biological age in their 30s. The biological age is a reflection of consistent choices, ways of living, creating a lifestyle that feels good, but also helps you to look good. And if you could imagine waking up 10 years from now, 10 years of consistently healthy choices, seeing yourself in a mirror, feeling good, looking good, feeling healthy with lots of energy, just let me know by nodding your head. I want you to get a sense that there is infinite possibilities of the future, and these are just two. And even if you don't end up in exactly this place, doesn't it make sense to exist in a future that is similar to this future? Where you're healthy, happy, full of energy, that the choices that you make serve you rather than cause consequences that are undesirable. I want you to imagine taking a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose, feeling connected with yourself again, feeling a sense of clarity. Simplicity helps clarity, and clarity helps decision making in the moment. And those small decisions that might be conscious to begin with quickly become automatic, subconscious habits that just happen by themselves. When you learnt to drive, you had to think hard. Now when you drive, you do it without thinking at all. It's the same thing when you change your body. To begin with, it requires conscious thought, and before you know it, it's just how you do things. Tap into that feeling of you've arrived at a destination through conscious work to start the roundabout spinning before it started spinning all by itself. Return to the present with a feeling of clarity, simplicity, and unlocked resources. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. Just wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, get a sense that all parts are in the present right now. As I now count from 1 to 10 to awaken you. You will awaken feeling resourceful, positive, feeling like you are back on track. Starting to count. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake.
Thank you for listening to The Hypnotist with Adam Cox, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. To automatically receive the latest episodes, please subscribe. If you'd like to support the show, please share this episode with just one friend you think it could help. And if this episode helped you, please leave us a 5-star review.